God's people said amen. How blessed of God we ought to be here today. To your pastor, my friend, my brother, Pastor Terrence Edwards. The Edwards and the deacons and the officers of this church. It's good to be here. Can I ask you a question this morning? Have God done something for you today that you couldn't do for yourself? I'm looking at some folk who ain't moved yet. I say, have God done something for you today that you couldn't do for yourself? They said the third time is a charm. Have God done something for you today that you couldn't do? Somebody say, what did he do? He woke me up this morning, started me on my way. Come on, let's give God a rousing round of applause. My mother taught me as a little boy that people don't have to be nice, but when they are, you at least say thank you. And I want to thank your pastor, gang, for allowing me to come to Liberty, Texas again to share with the Turkey Creek family. I know a lot of people, but I have few friends. Man, I look at your pastor as being a real friend. We don't talk every day, we don't text every day, but he's a brother beloved. And one thing I like about your pastor is every time you see him, he's always the same. Amen. He loved this church and he loved his wife. Why don't we celebrate God for First Lady Edwards? Amen. I thank the Lord for these young people today. I was telling somebody the other day in the barber shop that the devil don't have all our children, that God still has his hands on some of our young people. How many of y'all came to have church today? Amen. 2 Corinthians chapter 4. Verse number 8 and 9. When you found it, can you say amen? If you haven't found it, say wait for me. I believe we all should be there. And it says, we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed. Why don't you turn to the neighbor left or right of you? If you don't like that neighbor, you shouldn't have sat next to him, but it's too late now. Looked at that neighbor like you the man on the Kool-Aid pack with a big smile. Say, neighbor, good morning. Good to see you. Today, with God's presence and your prayers, the preacher want to preach about, I may be down, but I'm not out. Thank you. You may be seated in the presence of God. I may be down, but I'm not out. Brothers and sisters, the whole idea of this text this morning is that what we are in don't have to be in us. In other words, what Paul is saying in this text this morning is that peace doesn't mean I won't have problems, but peace means that my problems won't have me. And the shout of the text this morning is that God can deliver you in a situation before he delivers you out of a situation. In other words, you can be going through something and not jump off the bridge. You can be going through something and not pick up the bottle. You can be going through something and not have an overdose because you got peace in the midst of your trouble. I like what the text says. Paul says that we are troubled, but we are not distressed. We are persecuted, but not in despair. We are cast down, but not destroyed. And the shout of the text this morning is that bad news won't make me change my mind. And I need somebody in the creek this morning who can testify. I've had bad news all year. Somebody had bad news all month. And somebody had bad news all week. But you showed up at the creek this morning to let your neighbor know that bad news won't make me change my mind. I need somebody in here this morning who can testify that I won't allow my wounds to wreck my worship. I need somebody in here who can testify I won't allow my pain to prevent my praise. I need somebody in here today who can testify I won't let adversity to affect my amen. I need somebody in here who can testify I won't let trouble tarnish my testimony. Is there anybody here today you showed up because bad news won't make you change your mind? You see, the problem wrong with some of y'all in church, we got, yes Lord, evidence of what the Lord has done, but we ain't got no expression. Some of y'all been in church all morning. You ain't said amen yet. These little kids been trying to sing you happy. The pastor been trying to pump you happy. And here it is. You sitting there like a bump on a log. Like God ain't never done something for you. But if the Lord done something for you, you ought to lift up your hands and give God a praise. And I wish I had about 49 folk. And I'll make 50 to lift up my hands. I'm going through it, but I'm still going to praise him. My way is rough. I'm still going to praise him. Friends are few, but I'm still going to praise him. I wish I had some folk on this side to just lift up your hands and tell the Lord, I'm going to praise you. Anyhow, here it is, y'all. Here it is, y'all. Here it is, y'all. Here is how you know that you're not out. Here it is when you can learn how to trust God in spite of your trouble. That if you are a child of God, you're going to have to deal with some trouble. I said, if you are a child of God, you're going to have to deal with some trouble. Y'all looking at me like that. I got Bible for you. Noah had trouble. That Noah was a drunk. That Abraham was too old. That Isaac was a daydreamer. Jacob was a liar. Leah was ugly. Rahab was a prostitute. Job went bankrupt. Zacchaeus was too small. Everybody up in here going to have to deal with some trouble. I don't care how big of a Bible you told, how many scriptures you quote. You can have more degrees than a thermometer. You can be a sweet soprano and an all right alto. You can be a tough tenor, a powerful preacher, a cute, classic, confident Christian. Everybody gonna have to deal with some trouble. But I like what Big Mama said. Big Mama said, I'm so glad that troubles, somebody know my Big Mama, don't last always. Let me tell y'all something. Every now and then I like to take my mother out to eat. I can't repay her back for how she raised me, but I can show her some appreciation. And I want to tell these young people something on Youth Day. Remember this, young people, that dead noses can't smell roses. Do what you can for your mother while you can. And we were at my favorite restaurant. We were at Papado's, y'all. And while we were at Papado's, while we were waiting on our meal, every time I put a bill down, I put TTSP. Y'all, my mother, she's nosy by nature. I'm in my mid-30s. 30s, and she always liked to be in our business. And finally, when we got through eating, she said, Reb, I want to ask you a question. I said, what is that? She said, every time you put a bill down, you put TTSP. I said, Mom, don't worry about it. She said, no, Reb, I want to know. I said, do you really want to know? I said, the TTSP stands for this too shall pass. Baptist folk miss they shout. And just because you got troubles in your life, this too shall pass. That's why Psalm 30:5 says, but his anger endured before a moment. Weeping may. I thought this was a Bible reading, church. Endured for a night, but joy comes in the morning. I wish I had about 50 folk that'll lift to your feet this morning and tell the Lord, I still got joy. Might not have a whole lot of money, but I got joy. Might not say where I want to say, but I got joy. Is there anybody in here? Thank God that you still got joy. I got joy that fire can't burn. I got joy that the police can't arrest. I got joy that the Republicans can't vote out. Is there anybody in here that thank God for joy? Here it is, y'all. Here it is, y'all. Here it is, y'all. The shout of the text is that God is a deliverer. When Paul writes this, it looks like he's living under the Murphy law. That whatever bad could happen, did happen. He's been in prison several times. He's received stripes from the Jews. 3 times he's been beaten with rods. He's shipwrecked. He's left for dead. But I'm able to preach from this text this morning because Paul never gave up. Here's what it means, y'all. On every side means trouble means I'm in a tight spot. On every side, it means if it ain't one thing, it's another. And here's the shout of the text. The shout of the text is, it means even though that I'm cramped, but I'm not crushed. I wish I had somebody in Turkey Creek this morning could just lift up your hands and say, even though I'm cramped, but I'm not crushed. And God left a little room, but the room wasn't for you to run. The room was for you to rejoice. I feel like preaching in this place. Is there anybody up in here this morning? You didn't leave here trying to run, but you came to rejoice in the Lord. Is there anybody in here today? You got to yet praise. You can't see your way, but yet I'm going to praise him. Things going left, but yet I'm going to praise him anyhow. Here it is, brothers and sisters. Allow your faith to determine your reaction and not your reality. In other words, that facts don't have to control your faith. You see, the fact is you laid off, but your faith ought to say, God will make a way. The fact is I'm sick, but my faith says God is a healer. The fact is I've lost a loved one, but my faith says ain't no burden that God cannot handle. And I want to tell y'all something, that trouble drives you to places that you wouldn't go on your own. That's why when God blesses some of y'all get amnesia about the activity of the Almighty. And sometimes God got to let you go through some trouble to let you know that where you are, God brought you. What you got, God gave you. Who you are, God made you. You got to learn how to trust God in spite of trouble. But not only do you have to learn how to trust God in spite of trouble, but here it is. You got to learn how to have comfort in spite of chaos. Look what he says. He says, we are perplexed, but not in despair. That it means, here it is, it means to suffer some losses without losing. And I want to tell somebody in Turkey Creek this morning, stop complaining about what you suffered and start celebrating what you survived. Y'all ain't going to talk back to me. I say stop complaining about what you suffered and start celebrating what you survived. I lost my job, but I still got joy. I lost my money, but I still got the master. I lost my boo, but I still got belief. breathe. I can't walk, but I can talk. Is there anybody in here today can just start celebrating what you survived? Let's just take about 5 seconds and tell the Lord thank you. Some of y'all ain't told the Lord thank you yet. Thank you, Lord, for eyes for observation, ears for information, a mouth for conversation, hands for salutation, legs for transportation, feet for foundation. I'm gonna open up my mouth and give the eyes of celebration. Here it is, y'all. Here it is. When you hold on to what hurts, you don't leave room to what feels good. He says we are perplexed because we don't know why stuff happens. And I want to tell you this morning, don't focus on the what. Don't focus on the when. Don't focus on the where. But if you focus on the who. And whenever you're going through something, you ought to look to who. Y'all know who I'm talking about, don't you? Some of y'all don't know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about who? The one who put the twinkle in the stars. The one who put the bark in the dog. The one who put the meow in the cat. The one who put the chirp in the bird. The one who put the oink in the pig. The one who put the funk in the skunk. Is there anybody in here today know who I'm talking about? His name is Jesus. And let me tell you something. Just because it don't make sense to you doesn't mean it doesn't make sense to God. Because here it is, church. Here it is, church. You and I live on explanations. But I want to tell you, every now and then, you don't need to live on explanations. You need to live on revelations. And whenever you're going through, God got a revelation for you. Somebody say, what is it, Reb? I got one revelation for you. And we know that all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord. And sometimes, Pastor Edwards, when dealing with God, some folk, they think they know everything. And let me tell you something. If you think you know everything, then you are qualified to be God. And since we don't qualify to be God, when you don't trust his wisdom, you got to learn how to trust his will. Can I tell y'all something this morning? Whenever you cannot track the hand of God, you can track the heart of God. Is there anybody here today? You can track the heart of God. When you've been down, it was the heart of God who lifted you. When you were disappointed, when you were depressed, when you were discouraged, when you were devastated, you got to learn how to have comfort in spite of chaos. He says, trust God in spite of trouble. You can have comfort in spite of chaos. But this messed me up, Pastor Edwards. You know you're not down. Here it is. When you can learn how to smile in spite of when people are shooting slugs. Y'all ain't gonna talk back to me. If you ain't never been talked about, excuse yourself from point 3, catch us was on point 4. And what I've come to discover, y'all, betrayal never comes from an enemy. Betrayal comes from somebody who you thought were down with you like 4 flat tires. And I've been in church all of my life. My father is a pastor. My grandfather is a pastor. All of my uncles is a pastor. And one thing I've discovered about church folk and church hurt, church is the only place I know well, folk will hurt you the most. Some of y'all just getting in church. I said church is the place where you will get hurt the most. And that's why I don't like folk coming up to me telling me who my friends are. I say, no, boo-boo, you don't know my friends. Because my frenemies list is longer than my friends. And I've lived long enough to know that on your way up in life, you got to let some people off. And here it is, y'all. You can be alone and not be lonely. I said you can be alone and not be lonely. And you can be around a whole lot of folk and still be lonely. But I want to encourage somebody in here today and tell you, it matters not who's against you, but it matters who's for you. And I want to tell you this morning, don't never let the voice of the persecutor be louder than the voice of God. Don't never let the voice of the attacker be louder than the voice of God. Don't never let the voice of a backstabber be louder than the voice of God. Let God have the last word. I say, let God have the last word. Here it is, church. The enemy knows you by your name, but calls you by your sin. God knows you by your sin, but calls you by your name. Some of y'all will catch that when you get home. And whenever you're on your way up, you always got folk who trying to shoot slugs at you. But what I've come to discover, y'all, people can't accept what's right with you when they're always trying to expose what's wrong with you. And I want to tell somebody in Turkey Creek, don't worry about folk who got their mouth on you, long as God got his hands on you. I want to say that again. I say, don't worry about folk who got their mouth on you, long as God got his hands on you. Church folk always got it bad, telling you what somebody else said, what they said about you. Now, let me ask you a question, boo-boo. Why they feel so comfortable telling you? And my mama taught me as a little boy that a dog that'll bring a bone, somebody know my mama, will carry a bone. Chances are they didn't say it. You the one who said it. And can I tell these young folk and you older folk too that some relationship in your life they ought to be a covenant. That's why I thank God for Pastor Terrence Edwards. It's a covenant relationship between me and him. Our relationship is for a lifetime. Then some relationships ought to be cordial. Yes, Lord. Big Mama said feed them with a long handle of spoon. Then some relationships you need to cut it. Cut. Come on, this youth day. You need to cut it. And here's the problem. You don't know the difference. Some of y'all is trying to make transitional people have a permanent status in your life. But can I tell you something this morning? If nobody else with me, he walks with me. He talks with me. He tells me that I am his own. Can you just high five a neighbor for the first time and say, neighbor, the Lord is with me. That was the wrong neighbor. Look at another neighbor and say, neighbor, the Lord is with me. Here it is, y'all. I may be down, but I'm not out. Because I'm going to trust God in spite of trouble. I'm going to learn how to have comfort in spite of chaos. I'm going to smile when people are shooting slugs. Yeah, but I may be down, I'm not out, because here it is, y'all. I'm learning how to stand in spite of my situation. Look what he says. He says, cast down, but not destroyed. Paul told me to tell you, you got to learn how to have a bounce back after your burdens. If you put Paul in jail, look what happens. A jailer gets saved. If you take him before a king, he turns, yes, Lord, a palace into a pulpit. If you put him in solitary confinement, he writes half of the New Testament. He turns every disappointment into a door. He turns every interruption into an opportunity. And here's what I'm trying to tell you. You ought to tell somebody, if my setback amuse you, my comeback gonna confuse you. Y'all ain't gonna help me preach. You ought to look at somebody and say, if my setback amuse you, my comeback gonna confuse you. Never judge a person by the story you walked in on. I say never judge a person by the story you walked in on. I may be broke right now, but that ain't my whole story. I may be laid off, but that ain't my whole story. Can I tell y'all something this morning? The revelation of this text this morning, if you fall, you're going to have some scars. I said if you fall, you're going to have some scars. And a scar is a sign that you survived your situation. I said a scar is a sign that you survived your situation. And what I'm trying to tell you this morning is that God is not through with you yet. I said God is not through with you yet. I'm reminded of a lady who was in church, and every time The pastor would get through preaching. The lady would say, thank God for my new car. She would walk out of church. She would go to the bus stop. She would wait on the bus. The next Sunday, this lady came to church, and the pastor got through preaching. The woman said, thank God for my new car. She walked out of church, she went to the bus stop, and she caught the bus on home. And then the next Sunday, she came to church, and church got good. It got good. It got good. Yes, it did. And the pastor got through preaching, and she said, thank God for my new car. She went to the bus stop, but the bus had already passed. The woman walked back to church. She sat on the doorstep of the church. The pastor was locking the church up. He said, Sister Williams, is everything all right? Sister Williams said, Reb, I missed the bus. The pastor said, I don't understand how you missed the bus when every Sunday you would say, thank God for my new car. He said, where's your car? Did your husband drop you off? He said, no, sir. He said, where's your car? Did you buy lemon during income tax season? She said, no, sir. She said, Reb, I don't have a car. She said, Reb, I want to tell you something. Some years ago, I moved here. It took a little while, but the Lord blessed me with a job. She said, Reb, it took a little while for the Lord to bless me with a husband. But he did. He said, Reb, the doctor said we couldn't have no kids. It took him a little while. He blessed us with Pookie and Ray Ray. She said, Reb, I just believe if the Lord bless me with a job, if the Lord bless me with a husband, if the Lord bless me with 2 kids, then I believe my car is on the way. Sister Williams, she left the pastor and she started singing a song. The song she sung, I'm so glad that trouble don't last always. Is that anybody in the creek this morning can lift up your hands and tell somebody, say neighbor, say neighbor, say neighbor, say neighbor, that weeping may endure it for a night. Tell them joy, joy comes in the morning. Let's ride now. Do me one more favor now. Stand on your feet. Y'all ain't moving. Stand on your feet. Grab somebody by the hand. Grab somebody by the hand and say neighbor, be not dismayed. Whatever be the tide, God will, won't he take care of? If you know he will, can you say yes? Yes! 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 Ain't he all right? Ain't he all right? If you know he's all right, can you say yes? Yes! 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 Do me one more favor. Grab somebody else by the hand. Lead with it. Y'all ain't grabbing nobody's hand. Lead with it. Rock with it. Lead with it. Rock with it. And say neighbor. Say neighbor. I know he's all right. couldn't keep it to myself. Ain't he all right? Somebody say, Reb, how do you know he's all right? It was one Friday. Y'all know what happened, don't you? He died, not because I'm Baptist, not because I'm a boy, but because I believe. Stay right there. All night Friday, all night Friday, but early, Sunday morning, then they get up, not with black power, not with white power, not with Chinese power, with our power. In his hand.